What's going on, guys? It's your boy Decoder, and welcome back to another episode of Know Your Rulings. In this episode, I got a couple of good rulings for you guys. I went to the comment section of my last video to get the rulings for you for this video, and don't forget, if you want to partake in the next Know Your Rulings videos, leave your ruling questions in the comment section of this video, and I'll go over the ones from this video for the rulings for the next one. So without further ado, let's get into the rulings. Okay, so this first ruling question comes to us from Prosamus, and they ask, if I use Eagle Booster on a Kagari on summon and my opponent chains to it with infinite impermanence, will the Kagari still resolve due to becoming unaffected? What about if Skill Drain is activated instead of impermanence in this scenario? So, in this case, the Eagle Booster is Chain Link 1 onto the Kagari. Well, we'd be Chain Link 2 and chain to Kagari's Chain Link 1 effect. So you go Kagari Chain Link 1, Eagle Booster Chain Link 2, and then Imperm Chain Link 3. In this case, the chain resolves backwards. Imperm will apply the negation to the Kagari, then the Eagle Booster will apply to the Kagari to make it unaffected by any and all card effects. In this situation, the Kagari's Chain Link 1 effect would still resolve negated, and the reason for that is because the Infinite Impermanence has already successfully applied its negation to the Kagari. So in this case, when the Eagle Booster applies to it, it won't erase that previously applying negation to it. It'll simply prevent any effects that resolve after the Eagle Booster has resolved from applying to the Kagari. So in this case, the Imperm has already successfully negated the effects of Kagari, so in this case, the Kagari will still be negated. In the case of Skill Drain, however, it works a little bit differently. In the case of Skill Drain is a continuous effect, which means that when Kagari would resolve is at the point at which Skill Drain basically checks if it's affecting the Kagari or not in order to negate it. So in this case, if you go Kagari Chain 1, Eagle Booster Chain 2 on the Kagari, Skill Drain Chain Link 3, Skill Drain will apply, but because it's a continuous effect, by the time Eagle Booster has resolved, the Skill Drain is no longer applying to the Kagari because the Kagari is unaffected by the continuous effect of Skill Drain. So in that case, the Kagari would resolve successfully and would be able to add its target back from the graveyard, specifically because it is unaffected by the continuous effect of Skill Drain. So this next ruling question is actually a doozy. It comes to us from Edward Kim, and they ask, if I activate King of the Sky Prison's effect to reveal itself and protect my set cards, and I set an Appointer of the Red Lotus this turn, on the following turn during my opponent's standby phase, am I allowed to activate the Appointer of the Red Lotus, and if so, would my Sky Prison remain revealed? So, in this case, I don't actually know the answer. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I've looked through all the precedent and stuff like that, and I've actually not found anything that is a conclusive answer for this one. So I'll explain the situation, and I'll explain to you where my head's at with my research that I made into this, and tell you guys where I'm at with all this. So King of the Sky Prison has an effect that says it can reveal itself from the hand until the end of the next turn in order to protect your set cards from being destroyed by your opponent's card effects. Appointer of the Red Lotus, however, says that its activation requirement, its cost, so to speak, is to pay 2,000 life points and to reveal your hand. So we know in Yu-Gi-Oh! That you are not able to reveal a card that is already being revealed. So in this case, the King of the Sky Prison is already being revealed. Assuming you have other cards in your hand that are not being revealed, the question is, are you allowed to activate Appointer of the Red Lotus and reveal those other cards and successfully fulfill the cost for Appointer of the Red Lotus? Or because you already have one card that's being revealed, can you not even reveal the other ones because you need to reveal your entire hand? That's the question that we have at hand here. From what I have found, there is no conclusive answer as to whether or not yes or no you are allowed to activate Appointer of the Red Lotus. In this case, it really is up to your head judge's discretion. This really is one of those things that if you're playing King of the Sky Prison and Appointer of the Red Lotus, you gotta ask your head judge at the beginning of whatever event you're gonna be playing at, and whatever the head judge rules is the correct ruling. In this case, we don't have a good precedent to say yes or no 100% this is the right answer, this is the wrong answer. So in this case, you would need to ask your head judge. If you were to ask me, Coder, could you hazard a guess as to what you think the correct answer would be? In my opinion, if I was the head judge of whatever event, I would personally rule that you most likely cannot activate the Appointer of the Red Lotus because you cannot fulfill its cost of revealing your entire hand. Now, this is just my speculation. At the end of the day, maybe Konami find that it's appropriate to reveal like the whatever's left in your hand, even though you already have a card that's being revealed, and they say that this is good enough to fulfill the requirement for a Point of the Red Lotus. If that's the case, then that's what it would be ruled, but we don't have an actual precedent that gives us an answer on this. So if I was to hazard a guess, I would say you most likely cannot activate the Point of the Red Lotus, but at the end of the day, we don't have a conclusive answer on this, so ask your head judge if ever you intend to play King of the Sky Prison and a Point of the Red Lotus at an event. Okay, this next only question comes to us from Matthias, and they ask, one question: if I control a Nurse Dragon Maid and a Kitchen Dragon Maid on the field, and I have Dragon Maid Ernest and Tinkek in my graveyard, at the start of the battle phase, can I return to my hand both of my Dragon Maid monsters in order to special summon the Ernest and the Tinkek? So, in this case, the Dragon Maid monsters have that same text as something like Pot of Extravagance that say at the start of X phase. So Extravagance says at the start of the main phase, as opposed to the Dragon Maid monsters that say at the start of the battle phase. These two work a little bit differently. So as we know, Pot of Extravagance needs to be the first card that you activate in your main phase. But when it comes to cards that stay at the start of the battle phase, they work a bit differently. The reason why is because in the battle phase, there's this thing known as the start step of the battle phase. And the start step of the battle phase kind of works effectively the same way as like a mini standby phase at the beginning of the battle phase. In the start step, both players can activate any sort of fast effects or any effects that specifically activate during the start of the battle phase, and this phase doesn't need to have only one chain inside of it. This sub phase, the start step, I should say, not phase. In the case of the start step of the battle phase, you are allowed to create multiple chains before you enter the battle step, where a player can declare attacks. So in this case, anytime a card refers to at the start of the battle phase, it specifically refers to the start step of the battle phase. Same thing as if a card like Evenly Matched that says during the end of the battle phase, it doesn't specifically mean you can only have one chain during the end of the battle phase. It's referring to the end step of the battle phase. I know it's a little bit confusing, and I don't know why Konami just refused to put the word start step and end step in their card effect text, but this is how that works. So in this case, if you do have the Nurse and the Kitchen on your field, you are allowed to go Kitchen effect, bounce it, summon, new chain, Nurse effect, bounce it, summon, all that during the start step of the battle phase. Okay, this next rolling question comes to us from Broitsu, and they ask, player A activates a face down Shaddoll Schism and declares that they will use the effect in the same chain link. Player B responds with Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion to negate the activation. In this case, does the Schism stay on the field? So, in this situation, you activate the Shaddoll Schism and you use the effect in order to fusion summon by banishing materials from your graveyard. Your opponent will then use Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion as Chainlink 2 to negate the activation of the effect of the Shaddoll Schism. So in this case, specifically because you used the effect of Shaddoll Schism while activating the Shaddoll Schism that was previously set, so you flip it face up, and in that same chain link you use the effect, the Shaddoll Schism will be sent to the graveyard because Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion here is going to be negating the activation of the card itself. And when you negate the activation of a card, even if your effect doesn't say that you destroy it as well, if you negate the activation specifically of a card, not of an effect of a card that was already face up on the field, if you negate specifically the activation of a card, that card will be sent to the graveyard because it cannot remain face up on the field. As opposed to if the Shaddoll Schism was already face up and used its effect and used Ghost Bell and Haunted Mansion on the effect of the already face up Shaddoll Schism, that Shaddoll Schism would not go to the graveyard for the simple reason that you're not negating the activation of the card, you are negating the activation of the effect. The reason why is because if you flip the card face up and activate the effect as per the card being activated in the first place, that basically activation of the Shaddoll Schism is treated as the activation of the card, as well as the effect being like merged with the activation of the card. So you're negating that entire activation, the activation of the effect and the card itself. So because you're negating that entire activation, the Schism will be going to the graveyard. Okay, so this next rolling question comes to us from Foreign Rax, and they ask, player 1 activates a co-linked Nightmare Phoenix targeting player 2's set spell trap. Player 2, Chainlink 2 activates said spell trap, which is infinite impermanence, and targets a Nightmare Phoenix. Player 1 then Chainlink 3 activates Solemn Judgment. How does it resolve, and does the Nightmare Phoenix get the draw? So in this case, basically what happens is the co-link Nightmare Phoenix targets the opponent's set imperm, the opponent chains that imperm, to which the original player activates Solemn Judgment in order to negate the activation and destroy that infinite impermanence. In this case, the chain will resolve backwards, the judgment will negate the imperm will be destroyed and sent to the graveyard, the chain link 2 imperm will resolve negated, and the Nightmare Phoenix as chain link 1 will basically resolve without effect because its target has left the field. Now the question here is, do you get the draw with the Nightmare Phoenix? So anytime you have a card or effect that says do A, then do B, do A must be successful in order for you to do B. In this case, because it says destroy it, then if this card was co-linked at activation, you draw a card. You will not be able to draw a card with the Nightmare Phoenix here because Nightmare Phoenix needs to successfully be the one to destroy the infinite impermanence that it targeted in order to be able to draw. So in this case, because it wasn't successfully the card who destroyed the infinite impermanence, you did not do A, so you stop there. You do not do the B part of the do A, then do B effect. So in this case, you will not draw with the Nightmare Phoenix that was co-linked. Alright, so this next question comes to us from 07, and they ask, during my main phase, I use the first effect of Cosmo Farm Girl to special summon a monster from hand and banish her as cost. My opponent then chains a face down World Legacy Secret, special summoning a Mech Knight Purple Nightfall to the column my Farm Girl was in. Does my Farm Girl get negated by Secret, even though the monster was not on the field when Farm Girl was banished? So this is basically a really common ruling question that comes up with the card World Legacy Secret. So World Legacy Secret says that if your opponent activates a monster effect in the same column as a Mech Knight monster you control, that monster effect gets negated. In this case, the way World Legacy Secret actually works is that it checks when that opponent's monster effect would resolve if that effect is resolving in the same column as a column where you control a Mech Knight currently. So in this case, yes, the Farm Girl would be negated. And the reason why is because when you activate a card or effect, that card or effect always resolves in the same location as it was activated. So even though your Farm Girl is now banished, because the effect of the Farm Girl was, for example, activated in your middle main monster zone column, that effect is still going to resolve in that same column. So in this case, if your opponent does summon a Mech Knight monster with World Legacy Secret to that same column, even though your Farm Girl is no longer on the field because it was banished for cost, the effect still resolves in a column in which a Mech Knight monster is in, meaning that the World Legacy Secret will still negate that opponent's activated monster effect. Okay, this last ruling question comes to us from Champion Aloe, and they ask, if I Pendulum Summon Harmonizing Magician and Purple Poison Magician, I use Harmonizing's effect to special summon Noble Dragon Magician, then I Synchro using Purple Poison and Noble Dragon, where should the Noble Dragon go? So, in this case, basically you have two conflicting effects that tell you where the card would end up. The Noble Dragon specifically says that if it is used for a Synchro Summon and the other material is not an Odd Eyes monster, it itself goes to the bottom of the deck, as opposed to the Harmonizing Magician that says that the monster that it summons gets banished if it leaves the field. So in this case, you have the Harmo that says that the Noble Dragon should get banished, and you have the Noble Dragon that says that it should go to the bottom of the deck. So here, it actually goes to the bottom of the deck. Now, the reason why is because if you have two conflicting effects, such as this, that tell you, no, the card should end up here, and then no, the card should end up there, in this case, if one of those two cards is the card itself applying that restriction to itself, so in this case, the Noble Dragon is the one that is applying that restriction to itself, that it itself will send itself to the bottom of the deck, it will take precedent over any other outside redirection. So in this case, because the Noble Dragon Magician is the one that is redirecting itself to the bottom of the deck, it will take precedent over the Harmonizing Magician, which says that the Noble Dragon would be banished if it leaves the field. So if it is affecting itself, it is its own redirection restriction that it's applying to itself, it will always take precedent over any other redirection that would be applied by another card. So anyways, guys, that was it for this episode of Know Your Rulings. I hope you guys learned something new, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any ruling questions that you want to ask me, leave them in the comment section of this video so I can go over those for the ruling questions of the next Know Your Rulings video. But anyways, guys, hope you guys learned something new. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!